Hello, Shat Nation. As we enter the Memorial Day weekend, I hope you all have a safe holiday. Big news here at Shat the Movies. Sarah and I are expecting a baby girl this September. We're very, very excited, and Big D and I are going to be ringing in that announcement with a diaper party. It will be on Twitch June 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern. The King Bee will be there, Big D, of course, Shatman, Jamba the Hutt, and who knows who else will be joining us on Twitch. We'll be playing some Helldivers. We'll be having some beers. We'll be hanging out. We hope you can join us as well. That's shatpod.com/Twitch to join us 5 p.m. Eastern, June 8th, to put some diapers on my little girl. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like some of the movies we have covered, we'll cover one and choose them for yourself. Please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all our information on past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you'd like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Tonight is one of those films, a film that we may have missed. I always think of Blood In, Blood Out. There's a lot of films out there that surprise you once you get a chance to see them. And this is one of those films. And one of our great listeners, Max C., wrote in and said, can you please review the 1981 Australian war drama film, Gallipoli? And he was kind enough to send us in an email telling us why this film was important to him.
And Mac in Texas wrote in and said, hello, Shat crew. Based on the ending of Gallipoli, maybe it's appropriate that I'm running late in my reply with my thoughts on this film. I feel like I've cheated a little with this commission. As a child of the 80s, I have a wealth of films I could draw from for a commission. My previous commission, Tremors, was one of my favorite films growing up. Gallipoli, on the other hand, is a movie I stumbled across only recently. I've yet to find another soul who has seen Gallipoli, and I feel it would be appreciated by both of you, even if it's not one you have seen. Before the release of Furiosa in 2024, I started revisiting the Mad Max franchise, leading me down a Mel Gibson rabbit hole of movie watching. While it's unfortunate that Mel Gibson turned into an unflushable wipe over the last decade, I can't help but enjoy his early films. He has an unmistakable charisma that I first experienced in Lethal Weapon and continued to enjoy in Mad Max, Braveheart, etc. I guess I found myself separating the art from the person. Back to Gallipoli. It came up in my watch list after Mutiny on the Bounty, and I was immediately hooked. I had first heard of Gallipoli in the Dan Carlin World War I podcast, Blueprint for Armageddon, and was interested to find a film on the subject. It does follow many war movie tropes, but it has a certain charm that I cannot escape. Both of the leads, Mel Gibson and Mark Lee, are excellent. The supporting cast, especially Snow, do an excellent job bringing the movie to life. The director, Peter Weir, has an amazing filmography, including Master and Commander, The Truman Show, and The Year of Living Dangerously. If I were to give this movie any criticism, it would be some of the odd music choices with 80s synth seeping in and feeling fairly out of place. If I had to guess, I don't see this dropping below 2 wipes. Also, if possible, I'd be interested in commissioning another movie. It's a long wait list after all. Any chance that either Dragon Slayer or The Wizard are available? Thanks for all you do. I look forward to your podcast every week. Mac Edwards in Texas. And Mac included a PS and said, I also feel like Gene needs to do a redo on Return of the Jedi. While Lucas has done his best to erase the original movie from existence, Petr Harmacek has created a great quality fan release of the original films painstakingly restored. And he gave a link to Harmy's despecialized edition. If you're interested in watching the films as intended, I would be happy to send a copy. It may not change your view, but ending the movie with Ewoks singing Yub Nub can't hurt. And again, that comes from Mac in Texas.
So first thing, yes, despecialized is the only way to go. And we would love a copy because I searched for it and could not find it legally. And as far as the other ones, Dragon Slayer I've not seen, but The Wizard, Fred Savage, video game, 80s. I think he goes on a road trip. He's on some kind of like championship. And I think he maybe has like a special needs friend, I think, who's really good at the game. I don't know if he was or just.
Are you mixing this up with Over the Top?
No, Over the Top's arm wrestling.
Yeah, but he also has a special needs friend. He goes around. There's tournaments.
I think this is more like Kingpin, the talented oddball.
Oh, got it.
Who's going to go out to the championship. He's probably going to learn something about himself along the way, build confidence, and end the movie. Maybe not winning the championship, but winning in life.
Mac, you may be surprised to know that I do have several friends who own Return of the Jedi on VHS and DVD. So I am familiar with the original version. And in fact, saw it as a kid. Terrified the shit out of me, as you might recall. As for separating the art from the artist, I'm with you 100% on that. Mel Gibson is undeniably charming. I like a lot of his movies. He's very fun to watch. He's been tasked with bringing cinema back to Hollywood. So that's very exciting. I think that with athletes, with actors, with musicians, I think 90% of them, if you met them in real life, they're probably pretty awful people. Gallipoli is a 1981 Australian war drama directed by Peter Weir and starring Mel Gibson and Mark Lee. The film revolves around young men from Western Australia who enlist during World War I. The climax of the film depicts the futile attack at the Battle of the Neck in 1915. Gallipoli, which had a budget of $2.6 million, followed the Australian new wave war film Breaker Morant in 1980 and preceded the 5-part TV series Anzacs in 1985 and The Light Horseman in 1987. Themes of these films include Australian identity, the loss of innocence in war, and the continued coming of age in the Australian nation and its soldiers. Mac, you mentioned feeling like you were the only person who's ever seen this movie. I watched this movie in high school history class, dicks, butts, and all. We were giggling our asses off, but things got very quiet later in the film. And I remember this being my first exposure to World War I beyond books. This is the first time I'd really seen it depicted. I'll never forget seeing the shrapnel come through the water while everyone was swimming. That really made an impression on me as a kid. I was a big fan of this. And I remember the other guys in class were also taken with this film.
So I've never seen this, and anyone who grew up watching their films or picking their films from a video store, oftentimes you would pick it based on the box art or the poster. You didn't have to know anything about it other than the tagline, who was in it, and what they were trying to sell. This movie, if you look at the poster, I thought it was about a safari, or I thought it was about a guide in the outback. You have Mel Gibson leaning back. I wasn't familiar with the World War I uniform of the Australian light horse, but this is the outfit. He's got the shirt open. He's got a bottle or something in his hand. And then you see a couple like running through the sands, and it looks like it's a romantic film. And then the tagline, from a place you've never heard of comes the story you'll never forget. This looks like a romantic safari. I didn't know what the hell this movie was. They could have marketed this way better to the rest of the world who didn't know the history of this war.
I found out from one of our listeners, Steve-O, that this is actually shown in like their acting classes. Peak acting in Australia and very popular there. Not so much in the United States.
No, I think that's we hopefully can rectify that. Get a couple more people, handful to watch it.
Well, Big D, let's get to the trailer.
From a place you never heard of comes a story you'll never forget.
Gallipoli.
In Western Australia, teen sprinter Archie Hamilton longs to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force. Frank Dunn is an ex-railway laborer who's run out of money. He also is a sprinter, and he is surprised when Archie defeats him in a carnival race. Archie gives Frank all the prize money he won and tells him that he will not be coming home, for he has decided to enlist. They both decide to travel to Perth and enlist together. So early in the movie, Frank has zero interest in going overseas to fight in a British war. He's just a guy working on the railway, trying to make it through, win some money sprinting maybe. And he's got good reason for not being interested in this war. First of all, he's in Australia. Secondly, he's of Irish descent, and he does not see the point in going to Turkey to help defeat the Germans for the English. And the film does a great job of showing just how distant the war really is from life in Australia. Yes, Australians are sending their boys to die in this war, but really, it's not impacting them at home. Like, it's kind of a running joke of like, yeah, let the Germans come all the way here to Australia. They're welcome to the outback. Life in Perth and the Australian outback there in Western Australia, it's not idyllic. It's not an easy life by any means, but it's certainly quaint. It's quiet. It's a way of life. And I'm glad that Gallipoli as a film made the choice to spend the majority of the movie absorbed in this lifestyle. So we can contrast that with the war. And I was surprised. The war occupies very little of this movie's 110-minute runtime. Most of it, we're seeing life in Australia.
And what stuck with me after the movie was over was how much of this film, they flipped the usual war narrative, the structure. Most war films drop you right into the battlefield or right into training. They build up the characters through the chaos, through combat. But here, we meet Archie and Frank long before they put on the uniform. We watch them train, they travel, they talk, they bond. By the time they finally reach the front lines, we care because we've spent 110 minutes of them watching them run around, share their dreams. The war doesn't even start until the final act. And when it hits, I'm caring because I don't know who's going to survive, who's going to die. I don't know the outcome of the war, but I'm invested in a way that normally you'd never be if it's a character you just met through 5 minutes of training. It's a hard sell to get these guys to go all the way to the other side of the world for a war that doesn't involve them. Yeah. Oh, Australia's next. I really think Germany had more in their hands than going after Australia, an island isolated on its own. And there's a narrative that I always think of when people, because this is 1915, it's World War I. And people always say, today, the kids today or the generation today, they lack the grit and the patriotism of the previous generations. We hear it all the time about World War II and all the professional athletes who went and fought and everybody running to sign up. And I don't know necessarily now if I believe it's patriotism. Because we see these guys are in the outback. They're just bored. Half of them are looking for adventure, and they're going to sign up for a war that they know nothing about. They had no idea. The world didn't know trench warfare, machine guns, tanks, chemical weapons. And it's like they almost romanticized the notion of war because they didn't know what it was. Watching this, I started to think that maybe the patriotism of old was actually just ignorance that you didn't know. Today, we know what war is like. We see it. We see the clips online. No one's going to run off and join a war where they're just going to be thrown into the meat grinder unless they're immediately under threat. So I think we need to give the older generations a pass that everyone was a true war hero, because a good percentage probably signed up for what it could give them and just a lack of what they were really getting into.
I think the newspaper scene tells the whole story. So there's a scene in Gallipoli where Archie, he's kind of brushing his fingers over this yellowed newspaper, and it's telling the story of what's going on in Turkey, right? And he sees these words, triumph and heroism. And there's this clean little map of Turkey and Gallipoli, and it's far, far away, right? There's no mention, like you said, Big D, of trench warfare, of machine guns, no pictures of the bodies being sent home, right? So you've got this guy, he knows he's an excellent horseman. He knows that he's fast. He's like, I can be a hero too. I can help my country with my abilities. And joke's on him. He never thinks he'll be going without a horse at all anyway, and fighting in a trench where the only place you're going to be running is toward machine guns. All that natural talent that he's got, all that capability, it's not going to help at all. They don't value his life there. He's just another body to throw into the grinder. And for an extra ounce of tragedy, he's got to be a gifted athlete. This guy, we know, he could have set records. He could have been the fastest sprinter that Australia ever had. He could have lived his life and grown old and married and had kids in Australia. He's young enough where he doesn't have to go sign up, right? It just amazes me that we can take war so lightly. And even today, we talk about going to war like it's no big deal. And it's stories like this, people like this, that are just getting thrown away for fucking nothing. Archie and Frank hop on a freight train, but discover the train left them stranded at a remote desert station instead of Perth. The station attendant informs them that they could either wait a fortnight for the next train or walk 50 miles across a dry lake bed. With Archie's navigation skills, the pair eventually walk to a cattle station, then make their way to Perth. They arrange to stay with Frank's father, and Archie persuades Frank to try to enlist in the Australian Light Horse. Failing to ride a horse, Frank enlists in the infantry with 3 co-workers from the railway, Bill, Barney, and Snowy. Frank and Archie are separated and embark on different troop ships to Cairó.
So I keep waiting. When are they going to go to war? When is it going to turn? And every time I'm getting a little eager, they throw us another defining moment in their relationship, in their lives. And you mentioned that there's this 50-mile trek across the desert. They're going to cut across because they can't wait 2 weeks for the fucking train to come back. And I know they're trying to tell us these are young guys, they're idealistic, they're fueled because they just want to get there, they want to get to the war before it's over. But this personally is my personal nightmare. I have 3 personal fears that I think would be the worst way to die. Being stranded at sea on like a little boat and eventually going mad in the sun, drinking salt water, maybe going in, getting eaten by a shark, I think, or being out in the middle of a desert, losing my mind again in the heat and the sun, or buried alive. So for me, the decision to go across this, I'm like, there's no way. I'm picturing Clark Griswold, that he's going to start walking and end up going into a circle. And I'm thinking, Jesus, what is going to happen to these guys? Because I don't know if they're even going to make it to enlist. I don't know what's going to happen, but this is an absolute terrible decision. Even though it's going to show us their determination, there's no way that I could go out in the desert and pass this. Gene, am I wrong? Am I thinking they're a little stupid for doing this?
No. I once drove across West Texas. Once. After the Chop Top Challenge this year, when I had the opportunity to bring the car back to Arizona, I realized that would require me to drive across West Texas. That's in a car. And I am not interested in that because there's that 200-mile stretch where there's just nothing out there. You break down, you're kind of fucked. There's no service station. There's no gas station. No, thank you. Also, guys, you're 18. You're broke. You don't have jobs. You're not on a timetable. And that dude hanging out in the shack by the railroad tracks, he seemed pretty cool. He was welcoming. You could have hung out with him for 2 weeks, made a new friend, played some chess or some cards or something, right? There's shade. There's water. What's the rush? A train will be here in 2 weeks. Just consider it a vacation.
With cell phones today and the satellite connection that the iPhones have, I feel a little bit better. But that's the thing of nightmares, like getting trapped in the snow or something like that. That is less of a fear than being out there and just dying. You don't have water, you're dead.
Also, if they hadn't found that cattle station, they wouldn't have made it to 50 miles. They got very, very lucky. They would have probably fucking died. They did not look like they were doing too well. And I don't know if you read the story, Big D, but just last week I read about a New York highway superintendent in upstate, of course, because fucking that's what they do up there. He shot a DoorDash driver for stopping at his house to ask for help. So this DoorDash driver, he was lost. His phone was dead. He was going around door to door just trying to see if anybody on the ring cam could like help him out, let him know where to go, give him directions, charge his phone or anything. I watched the video and it's not like the guy was banging on the door and the dude opened the door and shot him. This DoorDash driver is back in his car. The guy walks out, who also happens to be a firearm instructor, and he starts calmly, one-handed, just shooting at the DoorDash driver's car. It is chilling to watch, like the disregard for human life. And in an age where we have ring cameras, that's just sad. Like you can't talk to the guy for a minute through the ring camera to see what he needs. I understand you might have a wife and kids at home. I understand you might be home alone. Maybe you've been robbed before. I don't know. But there is zero risk to talking to a guy. And once he's retreated to his vehicle and is trying to leave, like, are you so afraid of strangers that you can't offer help? It's sad.
But I think it's the internet. Just like you learn more about the world that's actually genuine. I think people are more isolated. They're afraid. I get this talking to my father. My father's 80 plus, and all of a sudden he thinks he's going to get attacked at any moment, even though he's made it 80 years, that he's walking around with a Glock, with a round chambered and no physical safety, and he's concealing. And I don't know why all of a sudden he's feeling like everyone is evil. Everyone's out to get him. People are going to break into his house while he's gone, his car. 1915.
Yeah.
You didn't have this irrational fear because you didn't see any of it. Somebody came to the house and said, hey, I need some water. I'm going to walk across the desert. You're like, hey, okay, here's a canteen. Go over in that direction. Here's how you find north. Go out there. Today, nobody would help. People are afraid, and it's kind of sad. I think back then it was exciting. You're going to meet new people. You're going to go on an adventure. Today, the unknown is terrifying for people. That's sad.
Yeah, this cattle station, these two sweaty strangers that have been walking through the desert, they show up, and the family takes them in. They're serving them drinks on a tray, and they're like, yeah, here's a place to stay. We truly are a society in decline. Like, we are afraid of our own shadow.
Sadly, yes.
Well, Frank and his fellow soldiers train near the pyramids and spend their free time in Cairó drinking and visiting brothels. During a training exercise, Frank and Archie meet once again, and Frank is able to transfer to the Light Horse. After several days of boredom, Frank's infantry friends fight in the Battle of the Lone Pine, where Billy is traumatized, Barney is killed, and Snowy is fatally wounded. The following morning, Archie and Frank take part in the charge at the Neck, a diversion in support of the British landing at Silva Bay. Archie declines the offer to serve as a runner and recommends Frank for the role. Big D, earlier in the podcast, I talked about the budget for this movie. By American standards, for a movie made in 1981, Gallipoli was not terribly expensive to make. It's just shy of $3 million, but at the time, it was the most expensive Australian movie ever filmed. And I'd say they used that money wisely. Less than $3 million, they made me feel like I'd been to Perth, like I'd been to the outback, like I'd been to Cairó and Gallipoli. Instead of coordinating these big battle scenes and falling on their faces, the studio mostly used sound, occasional explosions to imply action off screen. But that war feeling, that madness, the chaos of it all, it came across wonderfully.
But amazingly, they filmed a lot of this on location, which today, there's no way this is happening. Like, they're near the pyramids or the Sphinx, and they're in the bazaar in Cairo. I'm like, this can't be fucking real. Today, it seems like everything is protected. You want to make sure that these historic sites are not damaged by a movie crew. Here, they just get out there, grab the Great Pyramids. Yep, set up a camera.
Yeah, maybe they got tired of dudes climbing up there and carving their fucking names into the pyramids.
Exactly. Yeah, that wasn't frowned upon until maybe that's what caused them. Now they're a little bit more careful. But that's one of the things you got to give this movie credit for. It looks authentic. A lot of the historical movies we've done, they're well-meaning, but they end up looking like a stage play where the costumes are too clean, or it looks like people doing a reenactment. But this nails it. It nails it in a way that you don't even pick up on it until you try to look at it. There's a scene where I think it's after the race and they're going to go sign up and the trains come in and it is a genuine old time steam engine. All the people waiting around the train, they look dirty, dusty, time appropriate. The people are walking like you would imagine they would do in 1950. And then the train is pulling out and in my head, I'm thinking Titanic. And I'm thinking the scene where they're leaving Liverpool and everyone's trying to get onto the ship. And that's a modern movie where they take the time. This, back in the 80s to do it, was, I think, something special. And the only thing I can come up with as a complaint is what Mac had said. The strange 80s synth. For people who haven't watched this, because I don't even know if the music comes up in the trailer, think of John Carpenter in the scene, like they'll be racing, and he'll be like, pew! It's a synth sound. And for the moment, it took me out of it. You couldn't have had anything time appropriate. There's a tense scene at the end where they do it, and it felt so odd. It felt so weird that they did this.
Imagine if they had taken those scenes, like when Mel Gibson's running, and it's this desperate moment, and instead of that soundtrack, it was just the sound of him running.
Yes,
it's way more effective.
Yes, drop the sound out. His heart beating, his breathing, instead of that cheesy synth.
And Big D, we talked about money well spent on this movie. I got to ask, it's World War I. You're being sent to Gallipoli. You're 20 years old. You're unmarried. There's Egyptian sex workers and they want like $2 to bang. You doing it?
Okay, so this is going to come across as like horse shit. But I'm going to, and this isn't because Vanessa could theoretically listen to this or my family could. I'm more like the character Snow, the sweet, innocent kid. I don't like strippers. I don't like to use sex workers or strippers because I know it's an act. They're selling. It's a performance. They don't want to be dancing. They don't enjoy the company of the guys in the club. They're thinking in their mind, hey, did I pay the rent? Hey, if I make another $500 tonight, can I get a down payment on the car? And I don't want to be that rube, that stupid guy. So I've never partaken in any of this, and I generally don't like strippers. But that being said, in Cairó, these women actually seemed like they were excited by the opportunity to see these Australian guys. I don't know if it was genuine or I was just being like wanting to believe it was genuine. But if I was not myself and I was one of these young guys and I had a chance for these exotic women, after I looked at all my postcards with those sexy photos, I think I would have back then. Today, I wouldn't.
Well, let's add an element to this though, right? So you're 20 years old. It's World War I. You're going to Gallipoli. Chances are you're not going home. You have not had sex. You're a virgin.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Then you're doing it.
Oh, 100%. I'm not buying any fake, King Tut tombs, relics, whatever antiques it were.
So even if she's thinking about paying her rent or her child care, you're still in it to win it.
I don't know. They seemed genuinely excited. It was like, hey, they were probably tired of the local guys. It was like something unique. It was the Australians. They're like, hey, you guys, come on.
There's probably like a boatload of Australians coming through every 2 weeks.
Exactly.
And when I say coming through, I mean coming through.
Yeah, I felt for the timeshare sales pitch.
Yeah, I love a strip club.
What about you? I didn't even ask you, Gene. You're single. You're going to war.
No, I'm not. But and even because I know I could die, they gave a very convincing speech in this film. And when they showed the dick on the chart, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I am incredibly paranoid about venereal disease. Even if I knew I was going to die, I'd be so mad at myself for contracting a venereal disease. Again, nothing against anybody who has an STD out there. Like we all have at some point. Some of us still do. No judgment. I'm just saying that I would be mad at myself if a guy told me specifically, don't sleep with these women. They'll give you an STD. And then I got an STD.
Can you imagine how bad trench warfare is to begin with?
That's what they called it back then.
And then having an outbreak while you're there? That would be the fucking worst. You're like, I'm sweating here, I'm miserable, people are shooting at me, and I have sores all over my dick.
The light horse are instructed to attack in 3 waves across a stretch of ground defended by Ottoman machine gunners. The first wave is to go at 4:30 after an artillery bombardment. The commander's watches are not synchronized, and the bombardment ends too early. When the brigade's commander, Colonel Robinson, insists that the attack proceed, the first wave and second wave are cut down by the Ottomans within seconds. Major Barton wants to halt the attack and end the carnage, and he sends Frank to inform brigade headquarters. But when he arrives, the colonel insists that the attack continue. So, Big D, we've seen World War II movies like Saving Private Ryan, where soldiers break down in combat, or they freeze, and all their comrades are like, you got to get moving. You're going to die if you stay here on the beach or whatever. Mm-hmm. Those guys, they are cowards. They are an insult to the uniform. But World War I, from what I've seen, whole different story. If I'm in a trench and I see a wave of dudes jump out of the trench and they don't make it 5 yards before they all get wiped out by machine gun fire, and they're not carrying rounds in their rifles, there is no fucking way I'm going over that wall. I would shoot my commanding officer before I follow that order. The minute I see the Turks get back in their trenches after bombardment, I am out. If that makes me a coward, so be it.
You're not a coward. It's not heroic or patriotic to die for your country. Make the other guy die for his country. You should survive to continue the fight. You're not a coward. The second, Gene, that I got the order to, like in Aliens, to put away my pulse rifle, no, you gave me this weapon for a reason. I'm not going to set off the terraforming nuclear reactor on LV2, whatever the hell the planet was. Here, there's no reason to affix bayonets and just go out without a round. There's no reason.
I don't want to rewrite history here, but you know what's another way to keep the Turks pinned down in their trenches? Shoot at them. That'll keep them occupied. Shoot at them.
It seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be gained by this, Gene, and you are not a coward. I would have picked up on these guys they're getting mowed down like 2 feet away.
Yeah.
I'd be a coward with you. I would pull over some of the bodies on top of me, or I would just delay. You don't have to be the first one out of the trench, right? They've lost track of who is the first wave, second wave, third wave. I'm going to delay a little bit. Wait for everybody else to go back and be like, oh, I can't believe we survived. There's no fucking way I'm going out there because these dudes are dying for nothing. And that's the infuriating part of this, is a lot of war. It means nothing. There's another movie that made me think about this exact fact, is Restrepo. It's a documentary about this platoon tasked with taking a peak for no reason other than to have Overwatch and to take that piece of land. In the end, tragically, after multiple deaths, the soldiers who you've come to know, they've died for nothing because in the end credits, they say a couple of months later, they just withdrew. Nothing was gained. It was pointless. And these young guys, they're not being sacrificed. There's no victorious charge. There's no strategy. It is just throwing them into the meat grinder as a distraction. When they're not chambering around, they all know we're just cannon fodder. We're just going to get out there and shot. And the Turks, they're sitting up on top of their line. They're not cowering. This is target practice for them. They're all up there laughing. The second I see that in my little periscope, I'm not going. Because the moment you realize that you're not dying for your country, you're not dying for glory, you're dying for nothing, there is no way that I'm going out there.
And Big D, I've never been to advanced infantry training. I'm not a hardened killer. I've never served in anything other than the Air Force Junior ROTC. I have a hard time understanding how guys that are sitting across from each other for like a week, the Turks and the Australians and New Zealanders, have the heart to kill each other at all. Like, as an Australian soldier, you've got more in common with the Turk across no man's land than you do with the British landing on the shore that you cleared by being a distraction. And we see these two sides. They're within shouting distance of each other. They're playing target practice with each other. I'm absolutely amazed that more soldiers given that much time to think about it, didn't just say fuck it and abandon the war. Just, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah, I think that probably is what caused the stalemate, is that they're both there. They could yell insults to the other side. No one was going to be willing to just run out there and just catch a bullet like these poor dudes do. And it had me thinking in the movies that we've done, Gene, and the types of war. And I have to ask you, if you had to pick your type of war that you would fight in, and you can't pick none, going to go back to the major wars of the last couple hundred years, and you have to be boots on the ground, uniform wearing. I want to know what war or what type of war you would pick that you think had the best chance of you to come home safely and to come home with your sanity. Gulf War, Korean War, Vietnam War, World War I and II, the American Civil War, Afghan, or the Napoleonic War. Which are you choosing and you think would give you the best chance to come back alive and normal?
Is World War II, do I get to choose the theater? Because there's no fucking way I'm doing Pacific theater. No fucking way.
Yes, I can agree.
Not a chance. All of us have dreamed of doing the European theater, right? You're liberating France, you're liberating Holland, there's wine and cheese and beautiful ladies, you're fighting Nazis. Yes, please. I would go do that. Also, and I don't think I'm a special person by any means, there's a very low chance that in the United States military, they're going to take a look at my skill set and go like, oh yeah, this guy's infantry. No, they're going to go, okay, this guy is probably going to get other people around him killed if we put him out there in the field. We're going to have him doing some back office job. But if I can't choose the theater in World War II, I am Gulf War all the way for purely selfish reasons, because I am a Kurd and Saddam Hussein and the Iraqis, particularly the Republican Guard, have fucked over my people for generations and bombed my people. I would love to get some payback. And also, we kind of had the upper hand in that one, I got to say. So, like, I think I got a pretty good chance of coming home. And also, like, I've got a bone to pick. So, I'd have to say Gulf War if World War II, European theater, liberating France were not in the picture.
So, I'm going to think of it differently. I'm going to break it into tiers. There's the fuck no tier. For me, it's anything, any old war. That's the fuck no tier.
Yeah.
Napoleonic Wars. I don't want pointy hats and swords.
No.
Because I don't want any like little injury that I'm dead. You know, even if I take a bullet through the arm, survive, infection will get me. So that puts Napoleonic War is out. The American Civil War is out big time too.
Can I offer a counterpoint?
Sure.
Life back then, you could be like eating with a fork and poke yourself in the cheek and also die. The risk of dying at war was probably closer to your risk of dying of everyday things. You could be riding your horse that day and get trampled. You could like die because there's ghosts in your blood and they gave you cocaine as the medicine. As time went on, your chances of dying in civilian life decreased. Whereas I think back then, your chances of dying were just kind of even no matter what the fuck you were doing.
I don't know. There's just something about that. The hacksaw, I just picture them like cutting people's legs off. Or we see Snow there, that they're not giving him food or water because he has a gut shot. That's the medicine I need. So I have to go with the middle, which is maybe I would do that. World War II, yes. European, fuck no. Pacific, no chance. I think World War I might be fuck no, because the trenches and the use of chemical weapons, that was just sitting there waiting to die. Vietnam is a fuck no because of the swamp, the conditions. You can't see the enemy. No jungle.
Also in Vietnam, we were the baddies. Big no on that one.
You're just the tunnel systems and punji sticks and just having like the enemy walk up on you. No, Vietnam's out. Korean War, maybe. It's a structured war, not complete chaos. We have defined lines. Yes, you're going to freeze your ass off, but it was mostly a stalemate. So I think maybe Korean War is good. Gulf War is good for the reasons you said.
Korean War, though, I think you'd be frustrated because you talk about like it being for nothing. That DMZ ended up in exactly pretty much the same spot as when the war started. Like all that happened. And in the end, they were like, yeah, it's kind of where we started. See you later.
Right, but I think the death total was less. I think I would have had a good, because those lines were pretty well defined. They weren't just sending waves of people over and using mustard gas.
And the doctors were quite charming. Hawkeye and Pierce and all those guys. They were cool.
That is true.
Hot Lips, Houlihan.
Hot Lips, Houlihan. Yep. Klinger. Yeah. So I think I'm going Korean War.
What job would you want to have in the Korean War?
Something safe. I'm going to be. No, I could man a tower. I could. There was no obstacles for me to breach as a sapper. I'd probably have to go with what I knew. I'd go sapper. I'd get attached to an infantry company. I don't know what they'd have. They'd probably have me, stringing up wire and obstacles.
Did they, in sapper school, did they talk about in World War One these fuckers that Steve-O was telling me about it? These fuckers that will tunnel under people and then just blow their asses up?
Well, that's the original name. It's a sappiere, I think it is. It's what they would tunnel under the walls of castles, and they would cause them to collapse and to blow them up.
So good.
But the sappers in World War II, fuck no. You remember Saving Private Ryan?
Oh yeah, the little
dudes
tubes
running up. The Bangalore torpedo. Yeah, the Bangalores, where they're sticking them into the wire. Our life expectancy in like World War II was minimal. We were basically the entire Gallipoli, like all those men. That's us in World War II. So, no, I'm going Korean War.
So tell us what war you would refuse to fight in. Write to host@shatpod.com or go to shatpod.com and use the SpeakPipe feature. Would love to hear it. Also, if you've been in any of those wars, would also love to hear that too.
Revolutionary War, another one. Standing in line, shooting at each other, and having some wound, like a foot wound that would kill you? No.
1812 would have been even worse.
Again, we're going backwards.
At least Revolutionary War, we were fighting for our freedom.
Yeah, that's true. It would have been more motivated.
1812, we provoked it. It was our fucking fault. Anyway, Frank suggests to the major that he go over the colonel's head to General Gardner. The general was informed that at Suvla, the British landing party is brewing tea on the beach. He tells Frank that he is reconsidering the attack. So Frank sprints back to convey the news, but the phone lines are repaired, and Colonel Robinson orders the major to continue the attacks. Frank arrives seconds too late, and Archie and his companions are cut down by gunfire.
So what I really appreciate about this movie is the way the ending pays off everything that we've learned to care about throughout the first half of the movie. Secondly, I like that there is no miraculous happy ending. There's no ending where the two of them and their speed and their ability to run saves the day. Doesn't happen. The movie takes its time. They let us get invested in Archie and Frank's friendship, not just as soldiers. They're like two kids trying to find their way around the outback and try to find their dream. And the way the movie puts it together so that at the very end, Archie's standing there, he's taking those deep breaths. If that's not done right, it would seem cheesy.
Yep.
Who is going to be standing there moments from death as every soldier is sticking their knife into the sandbags with the notes for their parents, with their wedding rings, their watches? It would seem comical. Why would he be doing this? But we now know that's exactly what he would be doing. And the thought and visual of Frank sprinting up that hill to deliver the message. He knows the life of his friend and hundreds depend on him making it. In every step, he hits an obstacle or he has to run through that exposed area that's under enemy fire. It's tension that I was not expecting. And when they're preparing to go over the ridge, I keep expecting, come on, Frank, get there, save the day. Let there be a positive outcome. And it just never happens. And you get the whistle, they go over the berm, and you see Archie's out there running, and it freezes on that last moment. And Gene, I have to ask, did you feel like these emotions that you felt were like growing? Or then at the end, did you just say, holy shit, I actually care about these guys and what happens to them?
I knew what was going to happen. You give me two friends going into war. I know that they're building up this relationship. One of them is going to die. Like, that's a given. But you're right, Big D. I didn't realize how much I cared about them and how badly I wanted them to survive this, how attached I was to these characters and how much I liked them until that moment. And the way I know a movie's got me is when I'm praying for a happy ending, personally, right? Subjectively, even though I know objectively, dramatically, it's not as powerful. It is a better movie with Archie dying, with Frank failing. It's a better movie, but it hurts. You don't want it to happen. I really wanted Frank to make it, and that means the movie did its job.
And then they don't even give us that last like title card that almost every war movie does to give it like that historic perspective that would tell us, okay, the ultimate outcome of the war was this and the retreat. Because this movie is not about the war. It's about these two guys. It's about the personal experience of war and not the nation at war. And for me, that was what really gave this movie a heart, and I was not expecting.
And I know what some of you are thinking right now. It's two middle-aged white dudes getting emotional over a war movie. Like, what's new on a podcast? What's new? But I think we've earned the right to feel a little something now and then. We've watched a lot of movies and been quite cynical about many of them. Gallipoli really moved me, and it had three gorgeous moments that just hit hard. The first is when you see the major. He's in his tent the night before the charge at the neck, and he's got this record playing, and he's singing to it, and you see he's drinking champagne. His wife gave him that champagne before he left, and she said, drink this on our anniversary, thinking the bad thing that was going to happen is that they were going to be a part of their anniversary. It's not their anniversary when he's drinking that champagne. He knows that is the last time he's going to get to drink the champagne. That is his anniversary with his wife because he won't be around after that. It suggested he knew he wouldn't live for that day. And the fact that what he chose to do at that time is fall back to the love of his wife as he's facing death, that is beautiful. The next moment that really caught my attention was the third wave of the light horse preparing to charge. You alluded to it, Big D. They take off their valuables. They stick them with bayonets and knives into the sandbags of the trench. They knew they were dead men. And all they wanted to do is assure that their treasures didn't get into the hands of the Turks, that something of theirs might go home. But even if it didn't go home, it didn't end up getting picked off, right? It was simple. It was powerful. It was perfect. And then finally, I didn't love the freeze frame at the end. I thought it was a little much when Archie's like head is back, like he's like crossing the finish line in a race. But there was a decision that they made. Archie is running and he's running as fast as he can. He drops his rifle. He knows he's not killing anybody. He knows he's not going to make it. All he knows is that he wants to be as fast as he can be for that like last moment. That's incredible. It was a choice, right? A lesser movie would have him, he's charging with his, his rifle and his bayonet. He's going to stab some Turk in the head. No, that's not it. It's, what are you? You're fast. Fast as a leopard. And just let's do it one more time. It's great.
And it's also easy for us. I found myself really hating the leadership and getting frustrated with the fact that they weren't doing the logical, tactical choice. And then it hit me again. This is, like they say, the fog of war, and communication is the most important thing. A war like this, you have no idea what's going on the front lines. This must have happened everywhere due to a lack of information. And as much as I was hating the choices, in a strange way, you can see the logic behind it. If they get a report that someone had made it through, you have to continue to push. You don't know what to believe and what not to. So in the end, you can understand the decision.
Not to nerd out about the war thing, but Big D's right. So let's say you're a commanding officer. All the information you're getting is from a runner and a phone, and they tell you your marker has been seen in the opposite trench. That means you got guys over there. You got to get over there and help them. You can't leave them alone. And if you're thinking that, you got to keep going. It's an understandable decision. It's unfortunate. That's all it is. And, those are the hardest movies to watch and cope with, is the movies where it's a misunderstanding. It's a miscommunication. It's bad timing, whatever it is that leads to tragedy. Again, this is what we go to the movies for, to feel something. And they did a great job. Now is the time in the podcast where we give our Shat score for Gallipoli. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get out of perspective. But 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when your legs are steel springs. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It's when you look like a wreck, but you're really 35. I'll go first. Big D, there was some cheese in this movie. The freeze frame, a couple other choices that they made. But overall, this is a very different and mature kind of war movie, especially for 1981. And it did represent very well this idea of the Australian New Wave, and really formed kind of our idea of what Australians are like too. And it's this concept of larrikinism, The Australians are like this easygoing, they're all the boys, you know, and they're kind of juvenile and they're kind of rough and rowdy. And that Australian spirit had not really been expressed to the world in this way. There's that added dimension of importance of the impact this movie had outside of Australia. I'm going 1.5 wipes.
I'm going to go a little bit better. I think it's 1 wipe. We have to remember, as an Australian movie, most movies that are made by the host country, they're going to tell the story of bravery, of heroism, of how they were fighting the good fight. You think of all of our movies, there's very few where we could potentially be seen as the aggressor, or not the beacon of freedom coming in to save the world. Think about the history. This is the first major military action for Australia as a new nation. It's a defining moment of their national identity. This movie could have easily been rah-rah Australians going out to fight the good fight and to save the world and to go out and make a difference. Instead, it's about two guys. It's about two guys from rural Australia going out in the world, finding each other, finding a friendship. And it's on a small scale, heroic for the individual Australians, but this is one of the few movies that isn't rah-rah nationalism. And it surprised me, and it was impactful, and the performances were really strong. I think 1 wipe is fair, well above what I expected, and a beautiful film.
Big D with 1 wipe from you and 1.5 wipes from me. That gives us an average wipe score of 1.25 wipes for Gallipoli.
Gene with a score of 1.25 wipes. That now ties us with 2 films in the 89 spot. One is an Australian film, The Road Warrior, and 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Slightly better than RoboCop and The Breakfast Club. Slightly worse than Fast Times at Ridgemont High, The Karate Kid, and Heat.
How does this stack up against Muriel's Wedding?
Ooh, I don't know.
I mean, for you personally.
Very close. They're very, no, fuck Muriel's Wedding. I would rather watch Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I would rather watch Crocodile Dundee. I would rather watch Crocodile Dundee 2. Muriel's Wedding is a disaster. Somehow is a story believed to be of like female empowerment, when Muriel's a monster. Muriel scared me more than the Turks, sitting up there with a belt-fed machine gun.
They're having a blast.
Muriel will steal your soul. Muriel will make you want to kill yourself. The Turks will just shoot you, but Muriel, she's a monster.
Sky, Steve-O, all our friends in Australia, thank you for sharing this film for us. Mac, thank you for commissioning it. Before we go, we do have some commission requests. First one comes from Wes. He says, I can't even tell you guys how thrilled I was to hear my email read on the show. Thank you for considering Donnie Darko for group commission. I can put $75 on it. If any others want to chip in for the rest, would that work? Big D, have we had any takers, or are we at $75 on Donnie Darko?
I think we're at 75, because we haven't broadcast it. But now hopefully people will join in.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to help out Wes, write in host@shatpod.com or just speak by feature to help commission Donnie Darko. We would love to do it. I think it's overdue. Next, I have an email from Fernando who said, good evening. I'm hoping the following films are within your criteria to be commissioned. Born in East LA, starring Cheech Marin, and Bloodsport, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. Surprised neither of them have been commissioned. If they have, and I just suck at scrolling, please forgive me. Much love and respect, Fernando. P.S. Born in the 80s, raised in the 90s.
Well, Gene, what if we do Born in East LA and then we throw him a free bonus of Bloodsport? Just give him the recording that we've already done? Yes, give him the recording we've already done. Yes, that's the free bonus. So if you do Born in East LA, we'll give you the link to the one on our website. Just go search again. Bloodsport's there.
Also, Fernando, while you're doing that research, Jean-Claude Van Damme's initials aren't JCP. I only knew that you were talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme because I know Bloodsport backward and forward. But unless there's somebody else in Bloodsport whose initials are JCP, it's not Bolo. There's the guy that plays Jackson, played by Donald Gibb. So I think he was talking about Van Damme when he said JCP. But either way, Fernando, I would love to do Born in East LA. It's one of my favorite movies. I saw that growing up as a kid in Arizona, not knowing about the situation at the border. It made sense later when I became an adult. And I think right now, in these trying times with our immigration issues, Born in East LA might be fun. Have a little chuckle.
Agreed.
Love to do it. Next up, we have an email from Chris who says, hey guys, it's C. Don here to propose a couple more commissions. First is Heist. It's written and directed by David Mamet and has an amazing cast, including the late Gene Hackman, Danny DeVito, Delroy Lindo, and Sam Rockwell. More flawed people, as has been my theme, and I don't understand why this movie didn't get bigger, but maybe you can figure it out. I also want to throw out Sideways. I mean, you want to talk about some very flawed people played by Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church. I know the author Rex Pickett. I've hung out with him. He's spoken at my winery, and they've dined together. Great guy, but definitely Miles, the lead. As someone who's been in the wine and spirits business my entire life, I can honestly say I've seen few things that had such a dramatic effect on the industry. I'll even throw in a kicker. Since it's all about Pinot Noir, I'll send you each a bottle of Pinot from my winery. No promo here. I closed it a few years ago after a great run. Mother Nature got me with the 2017 fires in Sonoma County. I find these characters despicable, but very conversation worthy. Thanks again, Chris.
Is that even a question, Gene?
Yeah,
wine?
I'll do it for the wine alone.
I'll do it for the wine alone, 100%. I would value that wine, yes.
Okay, so Sideways is for the wine. Heist is still on the table.
See, but we've done plenty of heist films.
But we haven't done Heist the film.
Well, I understand, but Sideways is like nothing we've done before.
Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, Rachel C. is back commissioning another very special film. Radio personality Larry and Vicky are stars of a mystery show. Since they announced their engagement, Larry has been plagued by speech problems and seeks out an unconventional cure. He returns to his boyhood home, a mansion in the countryside, bringing Vicky along. Larry reunites with numerous family members, including a flamboyant Aunt Kate, but discovers that there are sinister things afoot within the walls of the creepy estate. Again, commissioned by Rachel C., came out in 1986, starring Gene Wilder, made $8 million at the box office, and I have never seen this, but Rachel has rarely steered us wrong.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for the upcoming commission. Thank you, Mac, for commissioning Gallipoli. Thank you to all our commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV. We are everywhere fine podcasts we found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. And a special thank you to everybody who helped out with the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. Well beyond my goal to help with awareness and research for men's mental health issues and prostate cancer. You guys came through again. Huge year. Thanks so much for your help. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.